So I'm sitting here in Namibia in front of a beautiful camp, the Wanib camp actually on the Skeleton Coast, and I'm up early. We don't have an early start to the day, and I thought this would be a great time for some blue hour photography of the camp itself. It's actually one of my favorite types of photography because what is already a beautiful scene, but kind of just like, I don't want to say a mundane scene, but like not especially poppy. Just gets really poppy, really interesting, really dramatic, really colorful in camera because you're photographing in slow shutters, you're enriching this blue sky, and just makes, I don't know, some really nice dramatic shots. And I think it makes very interesting camp photography. And even if you're a hardcore wildlife or landscape photographer, doing stuff around camp and taking travel photos and kind of preserving the memory that you have of the place is a really nice thing to add to your portfolio. So I love blue hour photography. I wanted to give you a couple tips and tricks on how to do it, how I do it, some pitfalls, and maybe set you up for success on your next time that you want to do some blue hour photography. So the first thing you want to do is obviously be at the right time of day, and we're looking at like roughly 30 minutes. They call it the blue hour, but it's like the 30 minutes before sunrise. Okay, so as you get closer to sunrise, the sky's going to get brighter and brighter, so you really need to angle your camera away from the sun to get the rich blues. So I'm actually photographing, the sun's behind me, and so this is the darkest sky right now, and it's got the richest blues, and this is what I'm going for. You can see this is the direction that the sun's starting to rise, and although that makes for a beautiful sky, if you really want the dark, rich blues, it's the other direction. It's this way, so you can kind of see. Yeah, and then the other cool thing is the lights back there actually make for some really interesting long exposure kind of light and color. Definitely something to take advantage of. Not necessarily a critical ingredient, but with, you know, a relatively long exposure, these lights really glow and get some cool color and cool ambiance to the whole vibe. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my shutter on about, I don't know, about a quarter second to a half a second, and then aperture at the lowest it'll go. So for me with this lens, it's 1.4, but I'm actually shooting at about f2 because we do have a lot of light. This is not astrophotography. So I'm doing like f2, 1/4 of a second, and then I'm using manual ISO to get the exposure that I want. And I do try to get the exposure right in camera. I think it's really interesting to get some nice darks and some nice lights. So basically underexposing, overexposing, and just using ISO to change those settings, not actually using my exposure meter with auto ISO, all manual all the time. Because we have a decent bit of light, I'm gonna focus on just the margins, like where the sky intersects with the tops of the tents here, because that contrast helps the autofocus work best. And in these lower light conditions, you gotta kind of hedge your bets as much as you can for autofocus. So yeah, just focusing there. And then here's the trick, is locking it then into manual focus for the next few shots. So again, autofocus to start off with, find a margin of light and dark, and then switch to manual so you don't have to constantly refocus. Oh, and then one more thing is that I set my auto timer, like my drive motor, to a 2-second timer. So that way, when I press the button, there's a little bit of a delay in taking the shot. That way the camera can stabilize and not be moving ever so slightly in these moderately long exposures. Yeah, so check out these photos I'm snapping right now. Okay, there you go. Crash course in blue hour photography. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and hope you get out there and give it a shot.